This is Hops in a Home, Lockstep Mortgage. Today we've got myself, Dan Green. We've got Mr. Ruben Estrada joining us today, loan officer with us. Alexus Richmond, loan officer with us. You've heard her before. She's here today. Chandler Sinclair.
Howdy do,
Another loan officer. Howdy do. Look at this.
So what are we drinking?
Today's beer is Mountain Livin' Pale Ale by Crazy Mountain Brewing in Denver, I guess. I've never tried it.
How did they get me on the can?
I know. That's attractive. Without your shirt on.
Yeah. How do they do
I've
this?
seen this before.
Oh my gosh, this is so
I would write a letter.
ready.
Okay. There go the
Chandler
cans.
was ready.
Yeah.
At the helm.
All right, we're going to try it out.
Okay.
Let you know what we think.
Ooh,
Ooh, actually, yeah.
I like that.
That's not too bad.
Yeah, very citrusy, just like it says,
And tropical.
and bright.
And bright. Yes, exactly what I was
No.
thinking.
Thank God we can all read here.
Yeah, it's just,
This is like
It's
the
a
Mountain
quite
Dew
important
of
for our
beers.
job.
yeah, it is beautiful.
I love it. No, I'm not a beer fan, so for me to really enjoy this, it has to taste pretty good, and I do. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
pretty
I
nice.
like it.
Yeah, I like
It's
it.
not bad at all.
I'm a liquor guy.
I'm more of a liquor guy. Yeah.
Ruben's
Yeah.
more of an iced tea guy. Let's get
Yeah.
Yeah, let's be truthful here. Yeah, that's
Iced tea.
iced tea on ice.
Without the
Ice,
lemon.
Yeah.
not hot tea, iced tea.
Iced tea. Hence iced tea.
Yeah, iced tea.
That's a man I trust with my mortgage.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Iced tea, not hot, please.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Oh.
Oh, no.
All right. Well, that's the beer. So today, what do we want to kick off with, Alexis? What are you thinking today?
I think we would like to hear just a little bit about each of you, kind of an introduction of some stuff that maybe we don't already know. I think we'll start with Ruben, since you're the first
Me?
timer here
All
today.
right. Wow.
So just give
Okay.
us a little bit about yourself and your journey, and then what your current position.
Sure. So I started in real estate as a real estate broker back when I was 19. So I've been in this doing real estate for 23 years. All my friends went off to college, and I went to real estate school. So I figured the classroom really wasn't for me. Not that I'm against education. I still like to be educated, but I just didn't like the classroom environment. So I thought, let's try to make some money. And I figured, I'm going to have to be in sales in some aspect, and I figured let's just go sell the biggest thing possible, and that's houses. So got into real estate. It took me a while to pass the test since I was 19. Didn't like to study, and finally passed and got my real estate broker's license, and did that for 20-something years, and then met Dan and got into the lending business. Been doing that for a couple years. Some of my biggest challenges, with the recession of 2000, I'm taking myself back a little bit.
Yeah.
2005, as a young kid, as a 25-year-old, I'd never been through a recession before. Never really been through a cycle, because when I got into the business, things were selling just like they are right now. Maybe not as aggressive, but they were moving fairly quickly. It was a seller's market. 2005 hit, and I had no idea what to do. So as a 25-year-old with 2 kids and married, and I was freaking out a little bit. So I had to work my way through that, got into the foreclosure business, sold a lot of foreclosures, did that, and then I had to reinvent myself again because foreclosures went away, and then I was like, oh, what do I do? Right, so I had to reinvent myself again, which took us back to relationships. And that really is the kind of the common denominator in any business that you're in, I think, is relationships. So that's kind of the basics of building a really healthy business, and one that you actually enjoy doing, is helping people do real estate and really be a part of their lives. So that kind of got me to this point, and been doing loans, loving it, and really enjoying it. So,
Nice. Well, I think one good point you're talking about, those years that were rough, we both went through those.
Yep.
It's good for these guys to know. this isn't really a recession, but now it's pullback rates have risen. There's no inventory, makes it tougher, and you got to scrap. I mean, what were some of the things you did back there to scrap and just make things work?
Right. So you kind of had to find the market of the moment. It's kind of what we had to do. So we had to do short sales and foreclosures, and if you weren't dealing in some type of default arena, you weren't making it. You needed to go get a job. So you got to figure out what the market of the moment is, and really try to figure out what's the real problem that you need to solve in this market, and really try to find a solution for that. And again, it all comes back to the basics. You never have permission to not do the basics. I used to talk to people that were veterans in the business, 10 years, 15 years in the business. And I'd ask them about open houses, and they're like, well, I don't do open houses anymore. Well, no one really gave you permission to do that. So they would struggle, and they weren't willing to do those things because they think that they somewhat graduate from certain things that actually work and are proven through any market. So that's just one example, but you never really have permission to get away from the basics. And really the basics are relationships and helping people. That's the bottom line. So if you're not doing that, then probably isn't as fulfilling, I would think, and your longevity is probably not as long as somebody that does focus on relationships. So,
Very good.
yeah.
I have another question, but we'll introduce these guys, and I'll go back to something on
I
that.
thought
But
the same thing. I was like, I have another question.
yeah, we got a bunch.
Oh, right.
We're gonna
Let's
put you
roll
on the
with it.
spot.
Let's just roll with
This
it.
is an
Yeah.
interrogation.
Yeah.
This
Let's
is
do it.
yeah.
Estrada show.
Where were you the night of no? Alexus, let's hear your background. Tell us a
Okay.
little bit about your journey so far.
All right. Well, I am new to Lockstep. I've been here for about 8 months, but I originally came from Canvas Credit Union. I was a teller, then a banker, and then as an assistant manager. So I was very familiar with, loans and trying to figure out numbers to make them work, and some of the basic items that come with just finances. But I just wanted to expand. I think I realized management wasn't really for me. I love the production side. I love the being hands-on with the client side. And so I didn't want to demote back to a banker, but I wanted to find a new specialty. And Chandler just happened to walk in as a Canvas member and told me, hey, have you ever looked into mortgages? And so he got me connected with Dan, and it's been a great fit so far. I think it's really rewarding. It comes with its stressors. As the team knows, I'm the stress ball of the group with my new, we're trying to work my stripes.
Yeah.
But I still really love it, and every closing is rewarding and seeing how it helps people. So that's kind of my background, and I can't wait to continue and grow and help more people. But I'm also in the space where I'm looking for what's the market of the moment, trying to figure out different ways to help and stay in the market without having to find something outside of it to keep going. And so that's kind of where I'm excited for this conversation and all the feedback and everything. So
Very
Awesome.
yeah,
Yep.
Thank
That's
you very
me.
much. Very good. And yeah, Chandler introduced you to us.
Yes.
So now, without further ado, Chandler,
What a
tell
great
us your
setup
story.
right there. Well, so I originally got my mortgage license in 2017 after meeting my mom's mortgage broker when she purchased a home, and I thought, what, I could do this too. And so I got my mortgage license when I was a sophomore at University of Colorado Boulder. And I was honestly very conflicted about finishing school because I knew I was going to graduate with a little bit of debt. I think so that last year was kind of a hard choice to stay in the classroom and finish, but I am glad I did it. But yeah, it helped me set up for success for the refi boom to come shortly after, but I definitely was nervous graduating, not having a salary position, just going straight into a sales role, which I didn't know how I felt about that at the time, but looking back, I'm just glad I took a risk on myself in that way. So yeah, I've been with Lockstep now for, like 4.5 years.
Man.
4.5 years. That's a long time.
It is a long time.
And I still have a young face, so
Yeah.
hopefully I've aged a little bit. These
You
4.5
have the
years.
mortgage years are catching up to you. You guys might not see this, but now he's bald and
It's like dog years.
dog years. Yeah, exactly.
That's exactly right. Alexus mentioned the stressors.
Yeah.
You know, after your first year, you kind of figure out, okay, this is the worst possible thing that can happen, and I'm still alive.
Right,
You know,
right.
You survive
Yeah.
those things.
There is a good, and for those not in real estate, there's a good meme that goes around where it talks about that we fix things that you don't know that happened or could happen or could affect you. A good loan officer carries that stress, and we, all four of us here, do that. We're right there with you, and sometimes you might not even see what that stress was, but we're there to kind of make
Don't
sure
worry.
we absorb it. We're like stress absorbers, so it doesn't hit you. Yeah, yeah. I think one good story with you, Chandler, is you were telling me about with the advisor from school. Mm-hmm. Talking about when you went to talk to her about taking a commission job and what they said at school.
Yeah,
I
was.
thought this kind of neat.
Sure, yeah. I was actually surprised at what my advisor told me when I was a junior, about to enter my senior year. And I told her, hey, I'm really nervous about going into a 100% commission sales role. And she had a background in real estate, and she said, you should take a risk and go for it. That you're young enough where you can take a risk like that, and your whole life is still ahead of you. You have time to make those mistakes and time to take risks on yourself. So she's just like, if you still are doing it after 2 years, chances are you have a pretty bright future in that industry. So here I am.
4.5 years later.
Here I
There
am,
you are.
yeah. So it helps when you have Dan Green working with you.
Easy
and
ti-
helping you.
easy
Come
tiger.
On now. But I gotta hype you up a little bit here.
Oh man. Well, I mean, my background. Let's go real quick. So I started doing loans. I think back in 2003, I believe, 2 or 3. Now I forget. I've lost track. It's about 20 years. I was human resources manager for Rock Bottom Restaurants, the old Chicago's. That used to be my life before, but then I got into loans. I didn't want to be in the corporate world anymore, and then for many years I worked on my own and really didn't have a structure or system. So when I started Lockstep Mortgage, I wasn't really looking for people to come aboard, but these 3 guys are like, now we're all family. Yeah. You know, it's just it's like it's just a good setup because you guys have the support, but you can still be on your own. And I wasn't really recruiting anybody. You guys were all referred by somebody. And you're just good people, right? It's just we are good people. We hang out. We like what we do, and we're good at it. So that's why we're here today. So it's really nice, and
It just goes back to the relationships.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Even when I tell my kids, even though you're not you're not starting your business or you're not in the relationship business, quote unquote, you really are actually, because when it comes time to go getting a job. It's about, getting referred by somebody or hearing about a job from somebody else. Or maybe you went to school with them and you have some type of connection. Finding that commonality is a huge advantage, and that comes down to relationships. So most people or some salespeople say that I'm not a relationship kind of guy. I'm kind of a turn and burn numbers guy. But that can only last so long before you get burned out. Mm-hmm. And if you want, like I said, longevity in any business, it just comes down to relationships, and you just can't get away from it.
Yeah. And honestly, with the refinance boom, something that I struggled with was, hey, I just need to crank out these refinances, and it became much less of a personal relationship, that you have with someone who's buying their first home, and you're walking them through every loan scenario. Hey, what happens if it appraises 5, 10, 15K short? What are the effects of that? And you're walking through every little thing that they've never even heard of before. And it is so much more rewarding when you focus on those relationships.
Yep,
exactly.
Client for life has kind of been our philosophy.
Right.
And it doesn't, we look at it as we don't want to be attached to results or anything like that. So when we invite people into our lives, it's not just a business relationship. It's about trying to keep adding value to them. For instance, when someone sells a house or closes a loan with us, we want to figure out how do we keep adding value to that relationship when it's not even real estate or loan related. Mm-hmm. So, I built when I had to reinvent myself back in 2010, 2011, after REO had started to dwindle down and people started having equity and getting back on their feet from the recession. I built this telemarketing team. There was 4 full-time telemarketers, and all we would do is just call around neighborhoods and say, do you want to know what your house is worth? Because it's probably better news than it was 5-10 years ago. Yeah. And what I would do is I just go in, give my time for free without any kind of attachment to the result. And when you give your time for free, magic happens. And when you're not attached to the result, it takes the stress out of trying to either convert or close, whatever word you want to use, that person. And what's interesting, and I had a coach that told me this, he says, when you learn to shake one tree and the results fall out of another tree, then you're doing something right. Because you can't have that tangible 1 + 1 = 2 kind of formula in business. It's really, 1 + 1 may equal 4. Because you're trying to you're like I said, shaking one tree and the results come out of the other, and I think that was a turning point for me because, back in 2013, 2014, we had sold a lot of homes and I was burned out. I couldn't be in another living room, and I was looking for something. Just being honest, and I wanted to get out of the business. And when I shifted my focus to when I started, cold calling and focusing on relationships, and I'd go pull weeds and I'd go move furniture and I'd go fix a plumbing leak for an older lady, for a widow, and all that stuff started, like magic started happening. Like I wouldn't do business with that person. They would refer me to somebody and I would do business with them. So I was getting business indirectly, as opposed to that one-on-one relationship. And I'd go pull weeds and, I'd go pick pears. Like this lady had a pear tree and she's like, you know what? I really feel so bad. Wholesome. Yeah. I feel really bad that all these pears are going bad. I need somebody to come pick them up off the ground because that would make her life easier. Right. And if I had to do it all over again, I would just call and say, what's one thing that I could do for you that would make your life easier today?
Nice.
And I just go do it if I could. And if I couldn't, I'd probably pay somebody to do it because I see the value in just helping people and it gets reciprocated tenfold. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking about starting a business, maybe go about it that way and just do the simple things that make people's lives easier. And that's where the magic happens.
I like it. Now, I think you should write a book. And if you don't call it Picking Pears,
I have to.
I
have to call it Picking
really
Pears.
Good. I think that's
good,
and it's a true story. Yeah,
that's good stuff.
Yeah,
Picking Pears.
Picking
We're
pears.
really good at these name
Picking
things.
pears.
I know.
I think
Not really the follow through, but we can come up with all sorts of ideas.
Well, that's where I come in.
Yeah.
I was like, you have an idea.
And we struggled with what do you do with the pears once you pick them?
Right. That's the second edition.
Right.
I think you could make some apple.
That's
pear sauce.
It's a choose your own adventure book. Yeah.
I was like, what do you put in what pears? What
Right,
pears?
yeah, right. Yeah,
Pear.
pear tarts. I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, there's
I was like,
pear sauce.
Ask the person who has the pear tree what to do.
Yeah,
Right. Exactly.
Gosh,
Yeah.
gosh,
There you go.
Put it back on them.
Right.
that's
The
a good
onus
idea.
is on
That's a
them.
good idea. Yeah, exactly. It's not your
This is your
responsibility.
pear tree.
I'm just here to pick the
Decide what we do
pears.
with these.
Right.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Oh my goodness.
Oh boy.
Well, we got off on a tangent there, I think. But yeah, you want to try and get us back on
for
track?
us being together, that wasn't too far of a tangent. We're
Okay.
doing pretty well.
All right. Good.
Really.
My question for you was, so you got your broker's real estate license versus just being a real estate agent with a broker of a different company like Compass or anything like that? Why did you choose to do that versus?
Well, actually, when I got licensed, there was like the first year that you had to become a real estate broker.
Oh, okay.
So you still had to do the 2 years under a broker to get experience before you could go out on your own. But I was fortunate enough to be with a firm. I did pick a firm just for the training to be phenomenal training. And it wasn't necessarily about what are all the things that are offered as far as training goes, scripts, dialogues, all that stuff. It was really about trying to keep you grounded and focused on doing one thing really, really well. Because there's a buffet of things that work, but in order to master something, they were really into like mastery of things, self-mastery, mastering yourself, and then mastering one thing at a time. And really figuring out, what's that one thing that will catapult you to the next thing, but really focusing on being good at one thing at a time. So I think that was some of the best training. But along with the training came the second best thing is the accountability. Is we can't be accountable to ourselves. It just doesn't work. So you have to be accountable to somebody. So you have to have some type of accountability partner. Could be your spouse, could be a loved one, could be somebody that you respect, a coach, whatever. And I think that was the second skill that I learned in business is that you need to be accountable to somebody other than yourself. So did that answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah, two great things that always come up is there's always, 30 different ways you can try to market to people, but picking the way that you're going to commit to, right? You can be successful any of those 30 ways, but just whatever you pick, commit to it for time because it takes time. And then the second thing, and now I forget what
Accountability.
You said. Accountability, is goals and accountability. If you set the goals that you want to reach and then check in with that, whoever your person is that keeps you accountable, these things we talk about and we know, but maybe we're not doing every day. There are good things that everybody should be doing at any level.
Right. And I think that Chandler, I think Alexus too, we had this conversation before about the whole, do I go to college or not? And, one of my daughters who are older and out of school now, one daughter didn't go to college, one daughter did go to college. And by default, as parents, we are a no college family. You really have to sell us on going to college. And the daughter that did go to college, she's a junior, and every year she has to sell us on why she should go back to college.
Yeah, I love that.
So we have that dialogue, and it's an interesting dialogue. And I think one of the things that you learn either through college or some other life experience, maybe it's a job, maybe it is entering corporate world or whatever. If you can learn the skill of accountability in that environment, whether it be school or a boss or something like that, that's a huge skill to learn. That is a life skill that will pay dividends, for a long time. As an adult and 43 years old, accountability is tough because when you start to become successful, you start to shy away from and do away from accountability because it is uncomfortable. And I think that's the other skill, maybe added to number 3, is you really need to stay uncomfortable. That is a huge life skill. Because once you get comfortable, you start making mistakes and you start going away from, I don't need goals. I don't need accountability. I know what to do. I'm experienced. I'm a veteran in this business. I'm set, right? I don't have to do these things anymore. But you know what? You really do. If you want to live the biggest life possible, you need to have those things. There's certain things that you need all the time and you can't get away from.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that just because our conversation really opened up a lot of dialogue for me and even with other people because, my mom has always been, we're a little anti-school sometimes. My dad's side, they're pure academia. My grandma worked at CU, my aunt works at CU, my dad, they were really on that track to go to school, and so that's what I did. But my mom didn't finish, and it was because, just the classes that they bombard you with that aren't specific to what you're trying to get to.
Sure.
And that's the hard part about getting through it is you're taking out these classes that have nothing to do with what you're doing. And she was saying, I was always fond of apprenticeships as being the most effective because you're doing the hands-off work, you get out there, you start doing what they've taught you, and you didn't really need the education, you just needed the training. And that's something I can't say that I would have changed my mind because I wasn't thinking of being in real estate when I was 19 or 18, but I think I'm more of an applicable person, like where I like to apply the things I'm learning right away. And trying to get through stuff that has nothing to do with what you're doing is very frustrating, especially when you're paying for it.
Well, that's a huge skill, and that's one of the selling points that my daughter, who does go to school, brings up, is that, you learn the skill to do things that you don't want to do. Because in any aspect of business or whatever, there's going to be certain things that you love, certain things that you like, and then there's certain things that you just hate to do. But all of it has to get done. And you got to learn to do those things that make you uncomfortable or that you don't like to do. And I think school, college, and even elementary, middle, and high school, all those things you're taught to do your homework, study for tests, go to school. Because that's a big thing. We have so much independence now that we could choose to go to school or not go to school. And I think learning those skills of doing the hard things that you really don't enjoy, that's a huge life skill that you can learn in college or wherever. So, and when I said that, my other kids that are choosing not to go to, higher learning or college or whatever, it doesn't give them permission to not be educated. So, it's I pay my son to read a book and give me a report, or there's certain things. There's not permission to not be educated and continue getting educated. It may not just be at a college level or whatever, but you got to continue to read. You got to continue to learn, and we're a learning-based family. So we got to keep our minds open, keep learning, keep advancing, whether you go to college or not.
I love it. Being you have some ideas on college too. What are your thoughts? Huh?
It's a waste of time and it's overpriced. Because what I did was...
Okay, thanks.
Moving on.
Because I was so nervous of getting to the latter part of being in school and not having my required courses, I knocked all of those out as early as I could. So my senior year, I was taking English 101, reading the entry English classes just to knock that out in the fall of my senior year. And it was, I don't know, I really didn't feel like I was getting much out of it. I'll say that. Yeah. I had already completed corporate accounting and all these other really necessary classes, because I have my emphasis in accounting, which I don't think I will ever use, but it's there. But yeah, it was that last year definitely felt like I wasn't learning as much as I was paying for, and that's what was frustrating.
Yeah. College is kind of expensive life training.
That's an expensive life training to learn what you don't like to do.
Yeah,
it's an expensive.
Really when I went to college, it's been a while, but it was a lot cheaper.
It was 2 Happy Meals, wasn't it?
It was 2 Happy Meals, and that's all it was. And that was my experience in the cornfields of Iowa. No, but now it's such a different topic because it's the expenditure is so crazy, and it's just exponential from what it was. So it's a different discussion. You have a great example of, you have to give why you should be going to college with your kids. I think that's great. Right. Present why.
Right.
And then if they're not, they've got other learning opportunities and many things out there that can be done. I don't know what's right or wrong, but it's all great subject. It's very interesting.
Right. Would you have done anything different looking back?
It's a great question. More back when I went to college, and my parents didn't go to college, so it wasn't like you're saying, if your academia was part of it, like you had to go. It just was kind of understood in my time frame. Is like, okay, then that's your next step. Then you're gonna go to college, and then I moved away from home, and it was a life learning journey. I don't know if I'd do that differently because of the circumstances then. If it was today, I would certainly think it would be something different.
Well, and maybe it's a different time because there's so much opportunity, with the internet and side hustles, and there's so many ways to make money now in different ways that wasn't, even before the internet, which I'm aging myself.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just different now.
Yeah, and that structure that was, you kind of poke holes in the structure that was just fed to us growing up with many things, with college, with Seatbelts, exactly. I'm going to ride in the back of that station wagon on top of my head with no seatbelt while my parents smoke in the front. That's how it's
as expected.
As expected, and I lived. But I mean, it's just a different world, like you say, and a lot of those things that I get frustrated that I think we were just part of a system where now you guys and your generation, you understand that more with like the market, the financial markets, how people are really making money, how there's money at the top where we don't have the opportunities because we're in that structure of you got to go to college and you go to your job, and to break out of that is the most important thing. However you get there, I don't really care how you get there. It took me longer, but you guys have already understand that, which is good, and you're younger. I think that's important. You break out of that. There is something different. You don't have to go 9 to 5. You can do sales. You can start your own business. You can do all these different things. And like you say, all the side hustles, and you basically get an education on YouTube if you wanted.
That's true. YouTube.
And there's a lot of powerful things out there that we just didn't have,
right?
At that time.
Yeah. Would you do anything different, Chandler?
It's hard to say because I definitely came from a home where it was expected to go to college, and I did take a year off after high school to just work and save up and kind of get ready mentally and everything to go to school. So I did a lot of volunteering and a lot of working. I don't know if I would do anything different. It's hard to say. I mean, looking back with the hindsight 2020, I am glad I finished school, even though that was a conflict I had, just to have that and have those relationships. But yeah, I don't want to live with regrets either, but I don't think I would do anything
No
regrets.
regrets.
No regrets.
Regrets.
I would look, if I were to go to college, I would look at it as a huge networking opportunity. And look at it through that lens versus really trying to get an education. And I would focus on trying to bring value to all those connections that you make, and trying to make lifelong relationships. I mean, that's the way I would do it. So
exactly, and that's why it's hard for me to say no. I wouldn't go back to school because I did have a lot of great relationships come from school.
Sure. Alexus, you?
I was trying to think of my answer. I had a very unorthodox college experience. I think that I don't have very fond memories of it. And I think that's just because I was, going through a lot. I went into it with a relationship. I think that was something I would change. I think it would have given me a little bit more enjoyment in networking out of college instead of being so attached to my relationship. And then by the time I moved back, I was to CU and I was a senior. I was independent, and I was living on my own. Then I had a job. I had to have an internship. I was a little overwhelmed. So I didn't really enjoy campus. I didn't really enjoy talking to people, networking. But I did do a lot of networking with my job because I was at Canvas and I was able to make a lot of financial relationships, which helped me get this job. So, there was networking involved, but it wasn't due to my education. So I think I wouldn't change it just because I think it was the path I was supposed to be on, because it did teach me a lot of the skill sets I think that apply to what I have now that helped me be a successful person. But I would have loved check-ins because I think I got off track once my senior year as well, that I really wasn't into my degree in speech therapy anymore. I just wanted to get the paper. And I was like, just give me the certificate.
Just check the box.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Check the
What's a
box.
sunk cost, right?
But, yeah.
At that point, you're
Yeah,
halfway
yeah.
done.
Yeah.
almost
So it's
there.
like we spent all this money, and I had the privilege that my dad helped pay for it, and that he took out parent loans, and so there was this obligation there that I'd finish.
Sure.
Yeah.
So because it wasn't just me paying for it myself. So I think it was an experience to have, but I think check-ins are a great thing to implement. I think having desire and like zoning it in. I think you have to understand now, depending on what degree you're trying to get, you have to have the expectation of how much school you're going to have to accomplish. Psychology is not just a bachelor's at this point. You're going to need a doctorate. So to be in the income bracket you want to be in, to be successful, social work, you need a master's. Just these have the expectation of how long you're going to be in school, and that might shape what you do in high school and how many grants you can get and things like that to help you pay for it. But if you're just going just to get the 4-year and your degree is art history or something that's not really applicable to getting a job, then I don't think it's worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you're saying there. I remember in college, because I started out civil engineering, and then I got to a certain level of calculus that my brain couldn't
You went
do.
to the second class.
Yeah, I went the second day, and I was like, wow, you guys are saying some things I don't know. But I remember in my dorm room flipping through the different degrees, and kind of a joke, but kind of serious, just saying, I pick this one. Like
Really?
flipping
Okay.
through.
Yeah, like
And
throwing a dart.
Like you're saying,
Yep.
there was no development of where exactly I was going to do. I just was going to college. I didn't know what for. After doing some civil engineering, I knew it wasn't that. But, there was no direction,
Yeah.
which was a waste of time and money. Now, I think in college, the things that I wouldn't change was I worked all through college. Like you guys did too. You worked through school, and that's not easy to do. Like you were working full time, I worked full time. Some of those jobs that I did that I keep, even growing up, and jobs I did in college keep me motivated to this day that I don't ever want to do again.
Right.
But I think some of those things that I did learn, the interpersonal skills and helps with sales and everything, like especially being a server in a restaurant, did that for years. Like, you were a restaurant as well. Just that interaction with customers, being able to figure out how to talk to somebody, no matter what they're bringing you, what their aura is, how they are, how do you talk to them? That's very powerful.
It is.
In sales and how you actually talk to people and
Just
and
servicing.
can relate.
Servicing.
So
Yeah.
those are some things I would never change. I think that's the basis of
Yep.
sales. I think everybody should be a server
Right.
at some point.
Right. No, I love
So-
that. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Let me find the next question. Okay, what are some advice? What is some advice you would have for people that are coming in new to the field, either in real estate agent, loan officer? What do you think is advice you would give to them at this point? And since we're kind of in uncharted territory.
Am I starting?
Let's start with Bing.
Okay. All right.
I'd say my number one piece of advice to give somebody starting out is to have patience, because it takes a while to build those relationships, to have somebody and have a whole network of people that say, hey, this is my loan guy. He can get your loan done for you. You can trust him. He'll take good care of you. If you can't, do something, he'll send you where you need to be, even if that means they don't get paid. And it's just down to they trust me. And that just takes time to build a relationship with people. And it's easy to get discouraged at first when you're, I've been doing this for a few months now and my numbers aren't where I want. Maybe you haven't even done anything yet. It still takes time, and just takes patience and perseverance.
Okay.
Spoken like a true.
Like someone who's been hurt before.
Yeah. You've been. I'm sorry. That's exactly right. I mean, this market's weird. It's not your normal market, but we've been through a few things like this. Is you got to keep at it. Things aren't going to come as easily in this market, but you will get rewarded for the hustle that you do now, you'll see it. It's going to take time, but that hustle, commitment, perseverance, like Chandler said, it'll pay off. And you'll see those things. It'll happen. It just takes time.
For me, it's the same thing. It's relationships. So when we wake up or when I wake up or, talk to my wife about, what are we going to do today? It's how are we going to bring value to somebody's life? And if we just keep doing that 365 days a year,
that's a lot of pears.
I was just picturing a lot of pears.
Yeah, that's a lot of pears. I look like a pear.
I figured it out. We're gonna make some type of liquor with pear.
Yeah.
There's your next business venture.
There you go.
In mortgage world, it comes back to drinking.
Yeah,
it's really where
it does. We need something to help us remember why we're helping people get where they need to go.
Our coping mechanisms.
Yeah, those stress absorbers is actually the liver absorbent.
Yeah, liver.
Pickled pears.
Pickled liver.
So I guess if I had advice, making a lot of mistakes in my career, is that you don't need a huge network to be successful. I would say focus on one relationship a day. And at the end of the year, you're going to find that you've added a ton of value to somebody's life. And it's going to be fulfilling. And our goal is to have our top 100 relationships. And hopefully we've created enough value and trust, like Chandler had mentioned, that they refer one person to us a year. And then we're working with 100 referrals, which is plenty of business for us to, my wife and I to handle. And that really simplifies our business plan is, one relationship at a time and maybe 100 really, really good relationships. And focus on the people rather than the things. Because there's so many shiny objects in our industry that we think that, buying this software or getting this thing is a silver bullet to being successful in this business, and it really isn't. It's more of a distraction most of the time, and it's usually a waste of money. So focus on people versus things, and I think you'll be successful.
That's great. Anybody have last notes on advice?
Best place to network is the dog park. Hands down, that is the best place. You've got renters there that say, hey, I need a yard. You've got homeowners there that say, I need a bigger yard. It's awesome. And
nice.
You definitely get to know people going to the dog park. Well,
now that my dog has no teeth and isn't a threat to anybody, I can definitely take him to the dog park.
Yeah, Milo, it's time.
Yeah, it's time we got to get some money. Start paying some bills. It's your time.
Milo's been 86 from a few parks, hasn't he?
Yeah, Milo.
I can't take him anywhere. He barely gets along with the neighbor dogs.
Wow.
But that's a good advice. I'll meet you at the dog park.
Yeah.
You meet in Albert Glue.
So it's so interesting how many dogs are out there or pets that actually dictate housing. Yeah.
Oh, seriously, it's a major consideration.
It is. Yeah. So that's fascinating. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. So.
I like it. I haven't heard before. Look at Bing.
Yeah.
After a woman said she needed a bigger yard for her pig, I realized that was a priority for the pets.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I said, I think you might qualify for a USDA rural loan.
Let's get that pig a field to run in.
Exactly.
Oh my god. Okay, well, other than that funny story, what are some funny stories or really stories that have stuck with you throughout the years when you think back on your careers?
That's a good question. Funny.
Well, I got a funny one.
Yeah, go ahead.
You always kind of, hold your breath until you see the title commitment and you can see loans, judgments that are placed on the home, right? Well, it really made me aware that I was doing loans in Colorado. Went on a purchase. It had, half a dozen marijuana liens from the government for growing in the home. And that was definitely a funny one because they had to send a title rep to the home to make sure that there was not any active growing at the home for them to get title insurance. Them to give the title insurance. Welcome to Colorado.
Nice. Yes. That's awesome.
You've got to have some, Dan. I mean,
I know.
out of
I didn't look at that question, so I'm like racing to think of that. But I don't have anything right off the top of my head. But I was hoping you had something.
I know.
And then I would maybe
trigger
add to it.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Funny. Yeah. I'm struggling there.
I'm
yeah.
surprised you
Yeah.
don't, because every time you
yeah.
come in the office, you seem to have.
Some story. Yeah. Yeah.
He's
Or a
got
client
things.
that
We've got funny things, but probably that we can't.
Yeah,
that we can't
maybe-
say on here.
That's true. Yeah.
That we try to keep to ourselves, but.
Goodness.
You always have
No.
some
Well-
out of the box. Let's try to problem solve the weirdest solution
Right,
we've ever
yeah.
heard of. Because
usually
they
good
have,
for that,
They
yeah.
have so many moving parts. I don't know which one we're going to tackle at each time.
Right. Right. Oh my
Well, we
gosh.
can come back to that one.
Yeah,
I'll
You
keep
guys
thinking
keep
about
thinking
that.
about that.
Usually crazy loan stories don't end up being funny.
Yeah, right.
You know,
Usually
it's
we
like,
don't end up paying.
This was the most stressful thing
this
I've ever.
loan was denied.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so what about lessons that you've learned? So any mistakes that have been made, or any lesson that you've learned that helped you get back, stay successful, or come back to a successful place?
I think one of the biggest lessons, especially in a hot market like this, because this could be a huge differentiator that most people don't think about, and it's your reputation. Just because you don't think anybody's watching doesn't mean that they aren't. And I think all you have is your reputation in this business. And I know that my wife and I, we really focus on having a really good reputation and delivering on what we promise. And when you're in a multiple offer situation and everything's equal, it may just come down to that, is having that relationship with that other agent, that mutual respect with that other agent, that listing agent if you're on the buy side, and picking the right offer on if you're the listing agent on the other side, and being a reputable lender, right? Answering your phone and being honest, and those types of those things that matter when it comes down to people buying a home or being homeless or it closing on time, and all the things that we do that kind of get robotic over time, that really they matter. Those things matter. Closing on time matters. Timing matters. Getting the loan done early matters. Any of those things that alleviate stress. And I mean, it's death, divorce, and selling a home or buying a home. I mean, those are the top 3 stressors in your life. So what we do matters.
Yeah.
And people are watching, and whether you like it or not. So you need to, I think the lesson that I've learned is that treat the other party with respect. If they're new, help them out. If they're doing something wrong, don't necessarily call them out, but work on it together. I think those are the lessons that have been really fruitful, especially in the type of market that we're in. When our offer gets accepted over 10, 20, 30 offers, and it may not even be the highest, but they knew that we were going to deliver, and we were going to close on time, and we were going to answer our phone when there's a problem, and they knew that we were going to work through things, and we knew that we weren't going to be the alpha and try to take control over the transaction, and we were going to have a dialogue. So all those things matter, and I think that's, if I had to do it all over again, I wasn't like that in the beginning. I just thought I was this top, hot shot 20-year-old that, doing a lot of transactions. But as I grew, and it helped with being married so young and children and things like that, and trying to have more patience, like Chandler had mentioned, patience, and knowing that I didn't have all the answers. And it takes more than one person to have a successful transaction. I think that's the biggest lesson that I learned.
And the real estate world is really not very big, is it?
Yeah.
You see,
It is.
Yeah.
You think it is, but it's
But
not.
it's really not.
You're right.
You deal with a lot of the same people.
That's right.
Alexus and I have talked about this. Like, just remember, this is a small world.
Yep.
It's for our lenders, our real estate agents. You will come across these people again. And one other thing, too, kind of hitting off that, is we talked about John Crispin's when he was in here. And I'm guilty of this, too. Once you've kind of done so many transactions, you're going through the process, can't forget that person might be buying their first home.
Yep.
And they are, nervous as can be, and they just might need a call to say, hey, everything's okay. They might need an email that says,
Yep.
appraisal's in, everything's okay. They need that reassurance because they're dying.
stressing.
They're dying over
stressing.
here. Yeah.
Yep.
So you
Yep.
just
Totally.
every little thing that you can do to ease their stress is what we try to do.
And that gets harder and harder as the years pass. I
Yeah.
mean, you're 20-something in, and I'm 20-something in, and soon you guys will be 20-something in, and you forget. It's not on purpose.
Yeah.
So I think you have to have systems in place so that you don't forget, so that everybody gets treated the same every time, and that experience is a phenomenal experience every time.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to help too is always it's your mentality is always how can I help somebody out? It goes off a little bit what you're saying, but how can I help somebody? How can I send out a referral to somebody I know? Always thinking you're the giver, right? Somebody a financial planner. Hey, love to connect you with my friend Glenn or whatever. That's a financial planner, just so you have everything put together. Always be the giver. It'll come back to you. If you always have that mindset.
And I'll tell you one lesson, Dan, that you bring up is not only be a giver, but also be a receiver. It was very tough for me to learn how to receive because once you start to give and give and give, and you always want to give, and then when someone wants to give back, you're like, oh, no, don't do that. No. Yeah. But you forget how good it feels to give somebody something. And then when you don't allow that person to do the same and receive it from them, that kind of takes the thunder out of what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
So I think you got to remember that is that you got to give, but you also have to learn how to receive. And even though you want to give, you have to be like, all right, okay, I'll let you pay. I'll let you pay this time because I want you to feel how good that feels to pay for something else for somebody else.
Yeah.
So
I'm not going to let you take the bill, but
well, we always
Yeah,
have,
yeah.
we
This is
fight
a
over
running battle.
the bill.
Running battle at Lockstep.
Yeah.
Some of
I'm
us
going to the restroom, Dan.
Yeah.
And then we just run to the waiter, waitress.
Yeah.
Look, we got to get in where we fit
you
in.
guys, yeah. Alexus, Chandler's, they're getting a lot better. They're really sneaky.
I run to the restroom and I forget my wallet.
Yeah, right.
Well, I can learn how to receive.
Right.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say. We need to learn how to receive. I learned to stop arguing and I just get in where I fit in.
Yeah. Get in where I fit in. There
On
you
my
go.
way to the bathroom.
I like it.
But you
So
have
you're-
to learn that too, Dan. I
Yeah,
mean,
right.
you got to let other people pay because it feels good to be able to pay for
Right.
you.
Right. That makes sense. You're right. You're right.
Yep.
What you're saying is, if you pick the pears,
It all
let
begins with
let
a pear.
them make pear sauce and give it to you.
Pear sauce.
Or pear liquor. Whatever we go with.
Or-
a shot. A good old shot.
Pear pie. I don't know.
Don't know.
Why
Why-
I think the
why-
pear is underutilized.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
there's
many
nothing-
It's a
opportunities.
forgotten fruit.
It is. I was like, I have no idea what has pear in it. What is pear? What is the pear used for? At this point?
I know.
I don't know what good a pear. I don't know why a
I
pear
like
exists.
pears.
I mean, if they're good.
If they're
If
ripe.
C and
If
they're
they're
yeah,
ripe.
yeah,
A hard pear is a. No.
It's a
No,
horrible pear.
hard pear
Yes.
is a bad.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. Well,
Ooh.
I
that
thought
was
we covered our pears.
yeah.
Yeah, we covered a lot today. I mean,
We have, yeah. I mean, do we have more to go though, right?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
we do.
I was
Okay.
gonna-
Yeah, you trying
Wow.
You can't
I'm
cut
ex-
this out early.
I'm exhausted.
Yeah, Ruben's like, "Good." So this has been great, guys.
Yeah, it was a
So
good time,
let's
good
hit the off button.
I think I had an off question that went from what you guys said. So for reputation, I think where is the fine line between reputation and change? Because I think
Give me an
that's-
example.
So if you are trying to bring awareness, change, advocacy for people in getting homes and making sure that, just like throughout history, we're constantly reevaluating to make sure that things are equal and fair. And, you want to have a good reputation within your community, but you also want to make sure that you're being an advocate for change if that's something that's important to you.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I think they go hand in hand. I mean, it's hard to change if you're not reputable, right? If you don't have a reputation, I think that that's a prerequisite for change.
You got to make the change with your reputation intact.
Yep.
Okay.
Basically, I mean,
Yeah.
because you don't want to ruin your reputation or things that would ruin your chance to get changed too. You know. So reputation's kind of a tough term because that's pretty, far-reaching. But in general, I see it as you lose a reputation, you lose value, and you lose respect, which is going to be hard to make that change.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Chandler's like,
Yeah, I mean, I'll say one thing about reputation is the only reason that my buyers got under contract right now in this market is because the listing agent said, okay, the other lender letters we have are from Rocket Mortgage and some other big bank. And she said, you're local, you have the right area code on your phone number, and I told her, yeah, when I give you a lender letter, this is my whole reputation. This is saying I have looked at everything. I'm not going to mess up this transaction because of the financing, and that means something to me. I actually care. And after I have that conversation, typically with the listing agent, I get off the phone feeling really good that we have a chance we got a fighting chance of getting our offer accepted.
Around here, that's extremely strong for sure.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of pre-approval, pre-qualification letters. They don't mean anything unless you have a conversation with the lender.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think picking up the phone or even calling the listing agent can make all the difference in the world.
It's a necessary thing to do. To open up that line of communication with them early on and say, hey, and if there are any problems, I will reach out to you, and I won't leave you hanging until, oh shoot, today is the loan deadline day. We're going to need to push this back. If they know that, oh, this came up in underwriting and it's going to be a problem, we're going to open up those lines of communication right away.
Right. It's like any other relationship. It just comes down to communication. It's just the other party wants to know what's going on. Mm-hmm. So when they're in the dark, they start to stress, whether it be the borrower, the other agent in the transaction, or whoever, is people just want to know. Whether it's good news or bad news, they just want to know. So communication's huge. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So
one thing that I always think about too is if there's ever bad news, I rip the Band-Aid off right away.
It's a Band-Aid. It is. Just pull that sucker off.
Yeah, it's like you got to tackle it, quickly come up with something that you think can be a solution, and you rip that Band-Aid off and don't let it sit because it doesn't help anybody.
It's true. Yeah, when it stews, it just gets spoiled.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, it doesn't, I would just take care of the bad news right away. Mm-hmm. So
and pivot, whatever that solution might be.
And most things can be fixed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm going through a remodel right now, and I'm figuring out that it's not efficient, it's ugly, it's messy.
It's dusty, huh?
Extremely dusty. Yeah, when my head hits the pillow, this big old dust. Poof, it's like, and I mean, there's just things happen, and I think people know that, and they just want to know, okay, here's the problem, here's potentially the solution, let's work this through, and know that they have somebody on the other side that's willing to work through it with them. I think that's important.
Yeah,
so
most people are reasonable.
You're
most.
Right.
Not all, but
that
most.
That is true.
If you come to them with potential issue, potential solution, let's talk this through. Most people will be reasonable.
You're right.
Even those that you don't think will be.
Right. That's true, Dan. I like that. Yeah. Got to remember that.
I think to go off of that, if a loan has to be terminated? What is that conversation like with the people involved? Say it could have been an error on our part, say it was the buyer's fault, or what is your conversation to keep your reputation with the people involved if there was a reason we had to come to termination?
Well, I think whenever there's a problem, I think you always have some type of ownership in it, and I think you got to own it. and you got to say, you know what, we missed this item, we missed this on the credit report, we didn't think this through, and it's my mistake, and I own it. And I think that goes back to accountability. Is you need to be accountable, and whether it hurts your relationship with that other party or not. I think you got to be able to say that, you know what, I screwed up. I screwed up, but I'll make it up to you. I'll make it right. And if you can make it right, you need to make it right. Okay. So I think that's the bottom line.
Yeah. And there's some of those things, like we probably something referencing recently where it's just literally out of your control. Somebody loses a job, takes a different job, things that happen. It's not, you can't go and say, that person is da-da-da-da-da, but you explain the situation, take your ownership of this happened, now it changes things. You're not trying to blame somebody. I do not like when people they come and say, even on some of the groups that we're in, they'll say, well, this underwriter did this and this underwriter did that, but it was our job to figure that out. Mm-hmm. We can't place the blame on somebody else. Something happens, hey, I should have seen this. I'm going to see what I can do to fix it. I'm going to do everything I can. Here's what I'm thinking, and we're going to try to do this. And you'll see that agents are right behind you. You're not passing the blame. You're taking ownership, and you'll do whatever you can to fix it.
Well, and I had that happen last week when I called Dan. Is it a Friday night?
Yeah.
Where
right.
we had a mail out. And I didn't, as a new loan officer, I didn't know that there's a box that says, there's a box that says mail out, right?
Yeah.
So that means that the borrower's signing on a different day than the closing. So Friday night, we're supposed to close this on Monday. The borrower's in Hawaii. And I get a call from the title person saying that the documents are dated the wrong date, and they need to be dated for the date that they're signing. And I had a moment in my head where I was like, you know what? Who can I blame this on?
Yeah.
Like, I don't want it to be my fault, but I didn't. And I said, you know what? This is on me. I screwed up. I'll make it right. So Friday night, Saturday, I had to get the homeowner's insurance changed to, which I think maybe you learned this too, right, Dan? I mean, maybe you knew this. The homeowner's insurance had to be effective on the date that the borrower's signing. And I didn't know that.
For this lender. Yeah.
For this particular lender. So I was on the phone Saturday morning at like 7 a.m. And I was up in Estes Park. I was with my family. So I got up before anybody else. I'm working on this loan, trying to make it right because I screwed up. I was up at 6 a.m. with UWM, and Chandler's done this in the past for me because I've screwed up multiple times, trying to make sure that everything's in line for a closing that's happening that morning in Hawaii. So I think you just got to own it. You just got to be real and not try to point fingers. And I think, and then I just goes back to reputation. You got to have a reputation of, he's not that a person that doesn't screw up. He makes it right when there is a screw up.
I thought you were going to say you went to Hawaii to give him the papers.
Oh, yeah, I wish.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. I was like, wow.
No.
Yeah, I mean, you really should have gone above and beyond, and taken me with
failed.
you.
Yeah.
I would have gone with you just to make sure.
Epic
you got
failure.
There. Yeah, that's. You'll learn.
Yeah. Well, Dan, you've got a great way of like having to self-discover. Like, well, did you check the box?
Yeah.
What
box?
What box are you talking about?
I've been there. I talked to 10 different people who didn't check the box.
Yeah.
You see that little box right there?
Yeah.
You gotta check that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So,
Like,
Chandler, what about you?
What was? Give me the prompt again.
Oh, this was
if you have to
Segue.
terminate.
yeah, right.
Or have something negative come up.
Like if you've ever had to come to that situation, like how you handled it, or if it was a conversation you need to have with the people involved.
Yeah, I mean, I had a guy who, day before closing, he was buying a new build, and the price of the new builds all increased since they went under contract, and the guy decided to open up a credit card the day prior for a JCPenney's for a $40 blanket. And I'm
So you could get 10% off.
I'm
or
going,
something.
what are you doing? What are you doing? You know I told you not to open up any new lines.
Yeah.
What are you doing having a credit inquiry done? He said the blanket was really soft.
Yeah, it's like-
It is just one of those things where, it's you devote all of your time and energy to find a solution and get it done as soon as possible. And luckily, we didn't have to move the closing back a day. We had to move it back farther in the day,
Wow.
but still close it on the same day. But
Tell them what
it's
you
just-
did for that closing.
The closing gift. Take a guess what it was.
Blanket.
Pretty soft blanket.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
And they didn't even need to open up a new credit card for it.
Nice. Wow.
He definitely got a kick out of that.
That's funny. And you recovered. I mean, it wasn't comfortable for a while, but you recovered. It worked out.
Right.
You
Right.
came up with a solution. It's not your fault, and you're not going to say it's not your fault, but you're going to fix it.
Exactly.
Make it seem like,
Yeah, exactly.
make it as smooth as possible.
Yeah. Cool. All right.
Perfect. All right. We're coming back to that funny story, so I hope you're
Oh,
thinking
right,
about it.
right. Funny.
We're not coming back yet, but we're coming back. Okay, so what are you looking at for the future now that you have been in this space for some time?
Well, I can talk to that. I think there's a lot of misconception out there where I think people look at the market and they think, well, it's bound to collapse, right? Like this is going to be a bubble or something. But this is a different market. There's very little inventory. There's so much demand still. It's going to take years for that to work out. So I don't see any bubble happening. It's not like we're going to have some large collapse that could change that quickly, that we foresee right now. But I'm not worried about where the market is. I don't think you can time it. I think timing real estate's a bad idea. I think you get in and there'll be some ups and downs, but over time that appreciation's going to work for you. Right now, where it's a rising rate environment, but people have to have perspective. That only affects people that are in low rates, right? Got to take ourselves backwards and say, if you don't have a rate, you don't have a rate. Rates are 5% or whatever now. That's just what they are. Historically low still. So it's shocking for people when rates go up like this, 3 to 5%. Over 6 months, but it's just for those people that had low rates. Mm-hmm. They still have needs. They still need to get a bigger home. You like to feel bad about that, but there's literally nothing you can do. That's just what the market is. So will rates continue to rise? Probably a little bit. I don't know how much, but things will come back. There'll be more homes that come on the market. There'll be people that still need refinance needs. So this will be a lull in the market, but I don't see any big changes happening.
Yeah, I think what we forget is that I don't think the market's driven by interest rates. I don't think anybody gets a divorce trying to time interest rates.
Yeah.
I don't think people have more kids depending on what the interest rate is. People pass away regardless of interest rates. So needs are always changing and needs are always there for housing. This may give opportunity for folks that have been on the sidelines waiting for more inventory to come up, or an opportunity for the market to slow down a little bit, be less competitive. This may be an opportunity for them, and there's opportunities in every market. And housing is necessary. It's necessary. So I don't think that's going away. So yeah.
Especially when you factor in the increase in rates for rentals. I mean, people are paying now 30 to 40% more for the same exact rental unit that they're in, and they're not seeing any of that money back. And people are frustrated with that. People are frustrated with not having a set payment, and it's a really safe feeling knowing that, okay, this is my monthly payment. And even if it is hard at first, hopefully that's the hardest that the payment will ever be for you, because hopefully you're going to be making more money and you're just going to keep progressing.
Right. Well, and when I have discussions with renters on that topic, and they complain about the interest rates. They're like, "Oh, interest rates are so high right now, 5%, 4%, whatever they're at." And I said, "Well, what's your interest rate on your rent and the rental that you're paying for?" And they're like, "What do you mean? I don't pay interest." I'm like, "You certainly do. You're not paying principal, so your interest rate is 100%. Don't you think 5% is a lot better?"
That's so good. I'm
Nice.
using that.
Nice.
Hey, let me write that down.
I was
real
like,
quick,
that was
Ruben.
gold. I was like, I never thought about it that way. 100% interest.
That's a good
only,
one.
Interest only
I like
payments
that.
over here.
Yeah.
With no equity.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, no, I
You're
like
welcome.
We brought him on here just
Someone-
for that one
Yeah.
thing to add.
It's almost negative interest, isn't it? Really.
Right? Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
And Mountain Living by Crazy Mountain Brewing Company. Pretty good stuff.
Gets 2 thumbs up.
2 thumbs up.
Yep.
I like it.
I like it. All right.
All right. Thank you.
Hops and a home.